Hello, welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Today is Sunday, December 21st. And what we're going to speak about today? Well, what we always do, a bunch of this and a bunch of that. So listen through it. You'll hear a lot of interesting things. Some maybe not so much, but some definitely ought to be interesting. Just to give you an idea, let's start off with the word monolith, which I recently came across. I've come across it earlier. I know monolith well, but I just wanted to highlight the word because it gets me how the high intellects, the university types, the people who are professionals can't say anything with an easy word. They've got to use something like monolith, which is what? A rock. Mono, one, lith, rock, one rock. It's a rock, but they can't call it a rock. It's got to be a monolith. All right, so let's talk about another topic, fusion. Fusion is when two nuclei are forced into one, releasing energy. Now, this is a favorite discussion of mine, energy, because nobody knows what energy is. You know, our science has gotten to the point, actually, it's been this way for a long time, where the main thing of reality is atoms, those little things spinning around like little billiard balls. And they're you can't split them apart. In fact, atom means unsplittable, unseparatable, and that's all there is. So now, when they talk about pieces of them being forced together and releasing energy, oh, what's the energy? What's the energy? All there is atoms. Energy, it's undefined. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. Crows are very smart, and I was just reading this thing about how. Yeah, they can do the tricks of putting the pebbles in the bottle of water and raise the water level high enough so that they can drink the water. So they got a little trick up their sleeve or two, but they're more intelligent than that. They can remember human faces. They can remember people that have been mean to them and people who've been nice to them, and they can remember them for years. You come back later. They did these experiments wearing masks and abusing the bird and feeding the bird, and the birds would remember the masks of the good people and the bad people. But what's even more amazing is they can communicate this information to their crow brothers and sisters, that they will then know who's the friend and who's the foe. Now, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, how do you, with crow squawks and caws, macaws, how do you say, yeah, a fellow with a big nose, blue eyes? I don't even know if they see color, right? I mean, how do you even describe it in crow language? It's truly fascinating. The more we investigate animals, the more we learn about them. Here was an interesting story I read about a school teacher who come to learn that a lot of his students, the poor ones that are really on the down and out, who live in their car, or even just in the street, these really poor kids, how some of them, couldn't even wash their clothes because they didn't have access to washing machines. And he went out with his own money and bought a washer and a dryer, and had it installed in the school that these kids could wash their clothes after school and have clothes. And this became like so noteworthy. It was in the news or something, that it came to the attention of Whirlpool, who dedicated how many washers and dryers to schools, for helping the kids that are in this position. And of course, they didn't just say, "Okay, here's washing machines for every school in the state, in the country." No, this was localized. I don't know how much energy made how many machines and how many schools, but I thought it was just a wonderful story about this person who cared so much and did that, and look what he did. And here, cheers to Whirlpool for coming up and contributing their equipment for that. Another story. Here we go. See, lots of stories. They're interesting. Stay with me. And by the way, if you've listened this far, please hit the like, subscribe, and notify bell. Every one of us podcasters loves that like, subscribe, and notify. All right. What's this? Another thing. I was doing some substitute teaching in a school because I got to make a little extra cash. I'm hoping someday this YouTube will make me some cash. But I was teaching a science class, and I was just looking it over some of the material, and came across something called the Laniakea supercluster. Laniakea. I don't know if that sounds Hawaiian to you, because it is. It's Hawaiian, and it's talking about a supercluster. And what is a supercluster? Well, we have our solar system with the sun, and it's all part of a galaxy called the Milky Way galaxy, which is billions of stars, as that famous scientist used to say, billions of stars. But galaxies also are in groups. You go outside the Milky Way galaxy and travel through way, way, way empty space. You come across another galaxy, and these galaxies get grouped around each other's, and they're called galaxy groups. In fact, we're one. We're in a group called the local group. I wonder where they came up with that name, a local group. But then, if you're a bigger group, like a local group might have dozens of galaxies in it, dozens of galaxies. If you get big enough, you can be called a cluster, which would have hundreds of galaxies in it, hundreds of galaxies, like 200 galaxies. Then these galaxy clusters and groups themselves are sort of clumpish together. If you back the camera out far enough, you can see they come in groups, and these are called superclusters. The immense size of reality that the scientists have come to discover. When we discovered these ancient Aztec, Mayan tablets, Egyptian tablets with the descriptions of the stars and the planets, and remarkable how they were able to predict and know these things so well. Just wait till some future race comes and see us. We were able to start seeing the size of the whole universe. Yeah, that's right. What's this? Another thing. I was reading a new podcast of the Dre Dossier, and she was making a convincing argument for the ballroom that's being built by Trump is actually a cover for a data center that they're going to put under there. And it sounds very spy versus spy and secretive and all. And I don't know why we should be even like, who cares? This is a data center. What do you expect? Big organizations have data centers. We got them all over. I mean, there's a lot of arguments about data centers using up so much electricity, draining the water supply. People's wells go dry in the neighborhood because the water's been, sucked out of the ground. But this person thought there would be a data center under there. I'm waiting to see more confirmation about it. Because right now there's a lot of hubbub about this ballroom, and the Historic Society doesn't like people messing with old buildings. I know sometimes the Historic Society, they rub me the wrong way. You can't change like a paint color on this historic house now because it's historic. All right. At any rate, they're investigating. They're putting a halt to the ballroom, and I'm thinking, okay, if there's a data center work that's planned that's going under there, there's going to be a lot of fight about this ballroom. There's going to be all kinds of excuses about why this ballroom has to be there, and we're going to continue with it. But we'll see what happens. This was a another story from my friend up in Canada. I forget his name. Such a friend, right? So his channel's called The Rational National, and he was talking about a discussion, an interview with Pierre Polyev, who was running to head the Conservatives and lost to Mark Carney after Trump started yelling about he wants to, take Canada as a 51st state. And while Canada was going conservative, the uproar against Trump and anyone like Trump, like Polyev, was such that they ended up voting for Mark Carney. So an interviewer was asking Pierre Polyev, people are abandoning your party. They're abandoning your party. And why is that? Why are they abandoning it? He says, well, I want to blame Mark Carney for that. And it was funny. He wasn't going to take the blame on him on what he's doing. He's not doing enough. He's not doing the right things. He's going to blame it on Mark Carney for why he's losing. But you know what? In a sense, it makes sense because Mark Carney is saying the kind of things people wanted to hear. And so, yeah, actually, Mark Carney is the reason. All right, what's this? The House passes a discharge petition to vote on a 3-year extension for the Affordable Care Act. So the House is getting upset with Mike Johnson putting a block on everything because Mike Johnson has to say yes or no if something's going to be voted on, unless you can get a discharge petition signed, and then it goes through whether he likes it or not. So now they are going to vote on the Affordable Care Act having an extension, a 3-year extension. And so take that, Mike Johnson. Here's another story now. Economics in Europe. Volkswagen is closing down 3 of its major shops. And so at first I heard this story like Volkswagen's just gone under, no more Volkswagen. But then I heard, no, they're just closing down a couple of their big shops, which is still a big deal. bad times for Volkswagen. Germany, I hear their economy's taking hits left and right, and just here's another sign of it. Another person who's being proposed by the Trump administration to fill a seat in the federal courts, a fellow named Justin Olson. And Trump always picks the best of the best. And this is a fellow who says sex is a sin, gay is a sin, trans is a sin, and disabled people shouldn't marry. This are the sensible people, the middle of the road people, the moderate people that the administration is trying to put in. No, a nutcase, a Looney Tune. All right, so much for that. Oil is the backbone of Venezuela's economy. And indeed it is. But this brings up a point, just thinking about in terms of economies generally in a country, when you've got oil as your backbone, what happens? You collapse when anything happens to the oil. This is bad planning. Your economy should be able to work with all the other resources you have. Venezuela doesn't just have oil. There's nothing else there but rubble and rock and dust and okay, rivers to drink some water and maybe some cactus, but then it's oil. That's all we have. We all have oil. No, they've got lots of other things. They should be having a diversified economy that can live with it. In fact, in my opinion, an economy should be such that you don't even need to do exports and imports. You should be able to live by yourself. What do you need to live? Mostly farms, food. You need food, all right? So if they're growing their food, they're 90% there already. And then, of course, you want some clothing. That's nice. A little sports activity, some soccer balls. Everybody likes, a little diversion from life, and then that's it. This being dependent on something, and this happens in a lot of cities in the United States where you have these one company towns like Tyson that just recently pulled out of one of the cities, and everybody was dependent on Tyson, and now they're all screwed because all now 1,000 people are out of work in this small town which only has so many jobs, and the other jobs it has nothing to do with cutting up chicken. So diversification. People ought to diversify. All right, what's this? Another story. An appeals court is going to consider banning troops in Oregon. And I'm just, thinking, why do you have to consider banning them? It's already against the law to go there. So they're discussing it. And I believe this was a little bit old and can't come to be that they said, yes, they can't be in there. And so it's being appealed up to the Supreme Court. We'll see what the Supreme Court does with allowing troops to run rampant around in our states and cities. All right, a federal judge has ruled that a U.S. attorney in California is serving illegally. And this isn't the first time. We also had one with Halligan, Lindsay Halligan, serving illegally. I mean, you're put in a position when you don't follow the rules, which is the Congress has to approve the person, but you just put them in there anyway. And you say, okay, we got a legal case coming up. Go ahead and, stand before the judge and present the case. And meanwhile, you're not even, legitimately a person who can do that. And somehow these crazy theatrics keep going on. All right. Here's another story. Germany approved a 3.1 billion arms deal to Israel, and the European Union approved a 20 billion in arms to Ukraine. Now, these guys are crazy. First of all, just giving to Israel with all the uproar about the genocide, but they're still going to give 3.1 billion anyway. It's because there's war hawks or gangsters at the top of these ladders that are either forcing their hands or they're just, money greedy. Like, I don't care. I don't genocide, nothing to me, as long as I can make 3.1 billion. And the European Union, they're approving 20 billion to Ukraine, which is a losing battle. And the thing about both of these things is that their economies are wrecked. Their economies are going down, down, down. But yet they're going to find this money for arms. And I think it's you're under the threat or something pressure from the arms people, to spend that arms money. It doesn't matter if the rest of the economy is going bad. As long as I'm getting 20 billion, what do I care, right? All right. Here's a fellow named Kurnow Damon. He's a guy who does a lot of great work, and I just wanted to give him a shout out because he was recently accepted into the Independent Media Association. And I don't know anything about it, but it's supposed to be a respectable, honorable association that you would look forward to getting into. And he got into it, and I say three cheers for Kurnow. All right, leader of the free world. I was just watching something or another, and they mentioned that phrase, leader of the free world, which, of course, they're talking about America. First of all, what do you mean leader? Like everybody's following you, what you do, we do, and the free world. What's so free about it? All right, we're freer than a lot of places. With speech is our number one freedom. Like right, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, association. Yeah, free, but we're not the only ones. All these European countries are free. A lot of places aren't, but we are. But where do you get that we're the leader? Just because we got the biggest economy, because we're a giant country, we're much bigger than Germany, England, any of those European countries, and we got the biggest military, and that makes us a leader. I don't see it. All right, what do we got? Labeled as terrorists. This is the one that horrifies me. If the government just wants to get to you, no matter what you're doing, you said I don't think Trump is the best choice for president. They'll say you're a terrorist, and now that you're a terrorist, they can just take you off the street. You lose all rights once you're a terrorist. There's no going to a court, no going to a judge. You don't get access to a lawyer. You don't get anything except shot or deported somewhere or thrown in a dungeon. They were throwing around the word terrorist. This is like when the people who protested the genocide in Gaza, they were labeled anti-Semite. Now, they're clearly not anti-Semite. Anybody with half a brain knows that arguing against genocide isn't the same as saying, I hate Jews. But these people will just say it so they can get to you. And this to me is an evil. Either if they believe that, well, then they're just nuts. But if they don't, then they're just evil, one of the others. And when you just say, I'm going to call you a terrorist, and this way I can get rid of people I don't like, that's evil. All right, so that's labeled as terrorist. Lena Petrova, I love this girl. She talks international economics and, American economics. She was talking about a recent event that bodes poorly for the United States. She has a lot of bodes poorly for the United States information and a couple of other people too. But this one was particularly interesting just because of the wording of what it was. It was the yen carry trade unwind. The yen, all right, the Japanese yen, that money, and the carry trade unwind. Well, what is this all about? Well, you can borrow. Yen, or the government a lot of times wants to borrow money by selling bonds. And in this country, they sell bonds. They also sell treasuries. And these sellings of these things are actually them borrowing money because they sell it to you. You give them money. Now they've got money. They have to pay it back with interest. Well, in Japan, they had bonds that had a very low interest rate, such that the people could borrow these, you borrow the yen for the low interest rate, and then take the money and buy dollars, which give back a high interest rate. And it would be like they would get free money. They would buy something that costs little and use it to buy something that returns a lot. And so this was just making money, 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 money. Well, finally, things are changing in Japan, and the interest rates are such that it's no longer so cheap to do that deal anymore. So now there's going to be a further crack in the American economy, which they're getting a lot with, especially the bonds. People are not buying American bonds like they used to, or treasuries. A lot of people are going now to gold and silver, or they're just not dealing with dollars. They're trading in their local currencies. Now, China and Russia do all their trades in rubles and yuan, and trade between China and India is done in rupees and or whatever they have. And so, yeah, the American dollar is going down. The American dollar has already gone down like appreciably, like 7-8% in the last year or so. So it's compared to other currencies. So there are things going on. People warning of a bubble's going to break, disaster's going to happen. Well, we'll see what happens. Here's a site that I thought was interesting, and it runs along the lines of Lena Petrova's with economic information. It's called UNFTR and stands for Un F the Republic. and this man does some good reporting. You get a lot of economic information, especially good for people who don't know economics. It's the top level thing where you get the big picture kind of stuff. All right, DOJ has been discovered to be deleting Epstein files. Epstein files finally were getting released. They had to be released Friday, and people have discovered photos that have been deleted from there. Photos of whom? Trump, of course. And so first, they're not releasing all of them like they were supposed to, and the ones they're releasing, they're deleting things before they release. And this one was discovered because they didn't quite get that picture, and someone brought it to their attention, and they deleted it. And so this is going to be a big hubbub. Oh, now you're deleting the files that had to be released. So there's my stuff for today. See, it's a lot of different stuff. Some of it's interesting, maybe some of it isn't. I thought it was all pretty interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give a like, subscribe, and hit the notify bell. And look for Generally Speaking again. Thank you.